Whether you've been diagnosed, suspect you might have it, love someone who does, or simply want to better understand how ADHD shows up, especially in women, I think you're going to have a lot of aha moments in this episode. My guest today is Andrea Morton, and I could not think of a better person to have this conversation with. She has such a good story. She's vulnerable. She shares such good examples. She is an ADHD coach, podcaster, former middle school teacher, and mom of 3. And she was diagnosed with ADHD herself at age 48. Then it became a mission. She got certified as an ADHD coach and now helps women diagnosed later in life finally understand how their brains work and stop carrying those years of shame and self-doubt. She brings both professional expertise and personal experience to this conversation, and she really has a gift of explaining ADHD in ways that just make sense. And I know you are going to learn so much from this conversation. Are you ready to work less, feel more organized and productive, streamline repetitive tasks, and implement systems that allow your coaching business to run smoothly even without you? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Organized Coach Podcast, your go-to source for practical tips and solutions. I'm your host, Tracy Hoth, professional organizer, certified life coach, simplifying expert, and most of all, down-to-earth fellow coach just like you. No matter if you think you're missing the organizing gene, have ADHD, or just love anything organizing, I'm here to help you become an organized coach with a business that works for you. Pull up a seat and let's get started. Andrea Morton, welcome to the Organized Coach Podcast. Today is a topic that I know so many people are going to be interested in. First of all, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Why don't you start just by introducing us, telling us what you do, how you had a business, and then we can just dive right in and talk about your diagnosis as well. But just start by telling us how you work with people.
I actually have 2 businesses. I do 2 different things. Very much like people with ADHD, I got to do it all. I have been a coach for midlife moms and empty nesters for about 7 years now. That business is called Think to Thrive Coaching, and I have an Instagram account under the name Think to Thrive Coaching that has accrued about 60,000 followers during that time. So
Wow.
It has been an exciting journey, and it has been such a joy to support mothers who I feel are a very underserved population. And I have been doing that as a mother. I have 3 children who are now almost 21, almost 19, and almost 17 years old. But much to my great surprise, when one of my children was going through their own diagnosis process, at the ripe age of 48, I learned that I too have ADHD combined type, and it set me on a new journey, wanting to serve yet another group of underserved women, which are women diagnosed late in life with ADHD. And so I went back to school, got a brand new credential, took a year, and am now fully certified to coach ADHD. And I have a second business called Scattered and Spectacular, which now has its own podcast. Basically, I have 2 businesses, I have 2 podcasts, and I'm excited to be here today.
Oh, I love that. And I love how you said, as most ADHDers do, I have 2 businesses. Being diagnosed as an adult, I have lots of clients who have that same experience. What was it like for you? Like, how did it feel when you found out that you had ADHD?
Gosh, it was actually amazing. So I was not expecting it at all. I have learned so much in the last few years, but really it was a huge shock. I knew that my husband had been diagnosed with ADHD when he was 7. That was something I knew from the very beginning when we started dating. I always knew there was a possibility that some of our kids might end up with ADHD. That was not a foreign concept to me. And as a teacher, which I had been for 20 years before I became a coach, I was used to having ADHD kids in my classroom, and I thought I knew what to look out for. And the image in my head was that stereotype of the crazy little boy running around, like unable to sit still in class, constantly interrupting people, tons of energy, talking a mile a minute. And I just didn't see myself in any of that, would never, ever have imagined it. But as I said, when one of my kids was going through a diagnosis process a few years ago, I was filling out all this paperwork. And I was filling out, and they asked, 100 questions. Do you see this in your kid? Do you see that in your kid? And I'm going through checking the boxes thinking, that can't possibly be ADHD. I've had that all my life. But after that happened about 50 times, I realized, that's interesting. And so I went through the formal diagnosis process myself about a year after my child did. And lo and behold, there you go, diagnosis, combined type ADHD. And it was like a veil lifted. And suddenly a million things made sense to me that just had never quite made sense before. And then there were these weeks of like really deep life retrospective moments where I'd be like doing dishes and thinking through something that had happened to me 30 years ago, but looking at it from a totally new lens of ADHD and realizing, oh, wow. Or like when I was going through my credentialing process and learning all about the different facets of ADHD, how it can show up, different ways to manage it. I had honestly I had more self-compassion, but I also had some grief. I had some grief of not having known this about myself for almost 50 years. And I think a lot of women feel this way. There's this question that we'll never be able to answer, which is, what would my life have been like if I had known about this diagnosis from childhood like my husband did? How would my life have been different if I had understood how to manage it? How would my college experience have been different? How would my career have been different? It just brings up a lot of questions.
That's such a good point. I never really thought of that. But I do like how you said you felt compassion and grief. Those were your two kind of emotions. So I have so many questions from what you just said. What were your symptoms then that you didn't realize you didn't know?
You don't know what you don't know because you don't know it.
Yes.
So many. If you had a list in front of you right now of all of the symptoms of how women can specifically show up with ADHD, and that is a really important point for your listeners to know, is that women do not typically present in the same way that men do. Little girls don't show up the same way that little boys do. And as with me, a teacher that had a stereotype in my head and thought I knew what I was looking for, a lot of times little girls can be dreamy. They can be staring out the window, lost in thought, have a vivid imagination. People will say something like, oh, she's always lost in her little world. And what they don't recognize is that is a way that ADHD can present in young women. For me specifically, I would say there were several big ones. I have always been a procrastinator, waiting till the very last minute on things and then allowing the urgency of that moment to push me through. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that maybe as we continue our conversation. But for a long time, that strategy served me. Like when I was young, before I had a family, and I could burn the candle at all hours. I could wait till the very last minute before a project was due and stay up all night and turn it in and still do well on it. And I thought, oh, I just am one of those people that fuels myself with stress. I didn't recognize that for people with ADHD, if you don't have high urgency and you don't have high interest, it is very difficult to get something off the ground. So that was one. Hyperfocus. When I'm locked in on something and really interested in it, I could sit in front of a computer working on it for 12 hours straight and forget to eat because I thought I was just really engaged. But it turns out that I do have this power of the hyperfocus, but it has a reverse side to it, which is if you are not interested in the topic at hand, then it is almost impossible to get interested in it. And there's this really weird dynamic that people like me face, which is that if we are given 100 boring tasks, we might not be able to do any of them because we can't latch into it. We just can't get our brain going. But then if you give us like a really hard, complex, interesting, and challenging task that like literally nobody else can do, suddenly we're like all over it. I'm there. I can do it. And then there's another thing that's something called rejection sensitivity of dysphoria, which I personally have always had. And so people would call me very sensitive as a child. Oh, Andrea, she's really smart and really sensitive. But my feelings would get hurt really easily, especially as a little girl, things that wouldn't hurt other people's feelings. Like I would just feel it in my body. I would feel heartbroken, just devastated. And so I've always had like very big emotions. And that was something that I didn't recognize I had no idea it was part of ADHD. I didn't actually know it was part of ADHD until I started learning about it. And then I would say the last one would be rumination. If you've ever been a woman who lays awake at night in bed with 1,000 things on your head and you cannot fall asleep and your brain is cycling around and around, that's ruminating. And it's a very big part of ADHD for women. It's actually how my hyperactivity shows up. As I mentioned,
Ah.
I have both the inattentive and the hyperactive types of ADHD. I am not physically hyperactive. I would never be bouncing off the walls in a broom. I would never be running around the house like crazy. I'm not nearly as athletic as my family members, but my brain never shuts off. And when I'm worried about something, my ruminating is a form of hyperactivity.
You were very good at answering questions. That was so good. I know one of the other ones I see a lot is prioritizing and like organizing the prioritizing part. But the sensitivity part, I've had a few clients. One specific story, I remember her telling me that someone didn't respond to her and it just consumed her and she would have normally reached out, but she waited all night. And in the morning, that person said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I never saw your text." But she totally had assumed that they were excluding her. They didn't like her. And that was purely from her ADHD.
Yes. And those things can actually have real life effects.
Yes.
I got an example. Like when I was in college, I wanted to be a writer. People who follow me on Instagram will understand that because I'm constantly writing for these reels. And I had a professor that I really respected and really looked up to. He was a famous writer, and I was so excited to get into his class. We had to sleep out to get on the line, like to be one of the lucky 12 people to get in that class. And so I was in the class and I wrote a piece that I was really proud of. I like slaved over it. I turned it in and he gave me some pretty like harsh feedback on what I'd written. And that's probably just his way of being like a good, tough love teacher to make you an even better writer. But I was so devastated by his feedback, I stopped writing and did not end up pursuing the career that I thought that I would. And like, what a huge reaction to such a small thing. I look back now and think, oh my gosh, Andrea, if I had known that I had ADHD, RSD, I would have been like, I wonder if I'm reacting a little bit more than most people would react to this feedback on a piece of writing, right? Maybe it's not quite as big of a deal as I thought it was.
But that kind of gives me insight for being a parent. Like for parents listening who think their child might, that sensitivity could, like, we need to parent our kids in the way that's best for them too. Do you think that anyone could have said anything to you, or even now, can someone say something to you when you react, I guess, overly sensitive to something? What do you say to yourself, or can someone help you through that?
It's both. I think that first it starts with me. Self-knowledge is amazing. And becoming a coach and coaching so many women over the last 7 years has helped me have a real lens on being able to see when my brain is creating things before I actually react to them. So that kind of dictionary for yourself where you're like, oh, okay, yeah. I tend in certain situations to have a big emotional response where I feel rejected by people when they are not actually rejecting me. So that's like knowledge I can carry with me into conversations where if I notice that I'm feeling hurt by something that someone just said, I can take a pause on that before having a reaction. And I can say, I wonder if other people would be feeling hurt by what like was just said to me. I wonder if I take a moment or a beat before I respond and think it through, if maybe I won't be quite as bummed about it. I wonder how it could change things. Also, just being able to run it by a friend and say, this thing that I went through bothered me, but I'm not sure if my read on it was right. Would that have bothered you? It can be helpful to just get a sense of, am I overreacting to the situation?
Ooh, that's good. You asking them, would that bother you?
Yeah.
Because, okay, I have to tell you this too. This is just coming to light. I have a friend who, her daughter has ADHD. She's diagnosed, but I wonder if the mom has ever been, and I think she has RDS. Is that how you said it?
RSD.
RSD, because that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And she thinks that I'm just a calm person, like even keeled. But that's something that she is bothered by or hurt by wouldn't bother me.
Yeah. That was a huge part for me of becoming a coach. And I studied coaching for a long time before I actually certified to become a coach. And it was life-changing for me. And this was way before I found out about the ADHD. I have very big emotions that live in my body. And so if my heart is broken, like if a relationship ends, I physically feel pain. And like, it's not just an idea or like a murky feeling. I feel like physical pain. And so I used to believe that's how everybody felt. And that what I felt was my reality was just reality. That's
Yeah.
just how it is. That's how it is for everybody. When I became a coach, I understood that we tell ourselves stories about the things that happen to us, and that not everybody would have the same story over the same thing that happened. Two people can watch the same car accident and have a totally different idea of what just happened in front of them. Two people can go through a heartbreak and have two totally different responses to it. That's one of the things that makes us so unique and interesting as humans. But learning that just because I feel that way doesn't mean that everyone would feel that way has been really eye-opening for me as a mom, as a partner, as a friend, as a daughter, a sibling, and just as a human.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love this. Okay. With a diagnosis, then, I mean, I know there's different treatments. I'm just curious if did you try medicine? Is medicine prescribed for an adult woman with ADHD? And how does that work?
It absolutely can be. And there are so many different types of medications that are currently available, way more than just like the two I know of. When I was a young woman, I knew Ritalin. And I would say that for me, medication was not on the table. It was not an option because I have a really sensitive body to medicines in general. And so I try to take only if like I really need an antibiotic or something's really, oh gosh, I really got to do it. But I tend to react in a pretty big way to all kinds of different medications. So it would never be my go-to for anything. But also having been married to my husband, who's been diagnosed since he was 7, he has never taken medication and he has always managed it with exercise. And so the first thing that occurred to me was, oh, I should probably start looking into doing some things more like my husband does. He manages it. He drinks a lot of coffee, but he also manages it through like very intensive daily exercise. And we always have teased about it the whole time we've been together, which is 24 years now, is, oh, don't talk to daddy before he's had his coffee and had his exercise, because it really does change his state. And so that was my go-to. When I recognized that this was a thing, I was like, okay, I think I need to actually get to the gym a lot more than I have been and take it seriously. Exercise is a medicine for me.
And you've noticed that's made a big difference?
Oh, it's massive. Yeah, it's huge. I can't even tell you. Like the person I am before I go into the gym versus the person I come out 90 minutes later are two totally different people.
Wow.
The person before could be exhausted. Also, I'm in menopause, girls. There's a lot going on over here. But like the person that I am before I go in could be exhausted, sad, like just dragging, unable to focus, just feeling like a lot of things are going wrong. And then I bounce out an hour and a half later, and suddenly I can sit down at my desk, get all my work done. I feel amazing. I'm able to focus. But I don't mean to say this in a way to discourage anyone from taking medication, because I think that it can be incredibly helpful and incredibly life-changing for the people who do choose it. And of course, a coach like me is not the person you would go to for a prescription. It would either be to your regular doctor or to a psychiatrist, someone who is qualified and trained to understand this is a medical condition and provide a medical prescription.
Right.
Just do something very different.
Yes. Okay, let's turn it a little bit toward business. And since your diagnosis, or even the comparison from before and after, what do you do, or how do you run your business differently?
It's been impressive, actually, the changes that have happened in just the last couple of years. But as I mentioned, I have been a lifelong procrastinator. And so very often I was still using stress and adrenaline to push me forward on all my business initiatives, waiting till the last minute to get started on things, staying up super late, like burning the candle at all hours. And that, as I mentioned, had stopped working even when I became a mother. And I've been a mom for a while now. There's only so much energy a woman has. And when it's gone, it's gone. But now that I understand that my brain is actually interest-based, and I understand that I was motivating myself through urgency, which is another way that ADHD brains run. But now I'm trying to understand that it's more about dopamine and interest. So if I'm having a low dopamine day and I really don't feel like doing something for my business, then rather than waiting until the last minute and letting urgency be my guide, I now know how to manage my brain by raising my dopamine. And it might be one of those moments where I'm sitting in front of the computer, I have 5 emails I have to get out, I have a bunch of things I have to do for my clients, and I can't start. I'm just over it. My brain won't focus. I can't think of the words to say. It's not coming. I now know, oh, okay, rather than, feeling bad about myself, shaming myself, saying, oh, what's wrong with you? Instead, I think, oh, okay, your dopamine is probably really low right now. What can we do to raise that? And it's a really intentional strategy of management. So then I can say, okay, let me try to go for a run for 15 minutes and see if that can raise it. Or let me go ahead and do something that will genuinely make me feel really happy and cheerful. Listen to my favorite songs or call one of my best friends or just do something that like raises that level of joy to the point where if you can, I tell my clients this, but if you can imagine like an even playing field. Everyone starts at baseline. Most people start there and then they just have to ante up to get their work done for the day. But someone with ADHD who's in a low dopamine moment and just doesn't have it, imagine they're like 10 feet below that baseline. So for me, going out, doing my jog or talking to my friend or doing something fun or even seeing some live music, whatever it is, brings me back up to that neutral point where then I can go ahead and start like everybody else. So it's about managing joy. I would say that's probably one of the biggest things. And yeah, I think self-care has become my new business strategy, like understanding that caring for myself is caring for my business.
That's so good. So is there still times, I guess, before you just weren't doing those tasks or you were, like you said, getting really upset with yourself because you weren't doing boring tasks? Is there a time where you still just have to push through or is it just literally impossible?
Look, I'd been coping with this for 48 years before I got diagnosed. And so I already had a lot of coping strategies in place. And of course, there are times that you have to just push through with anything, even just as a mother. Like there are times when you do not feel like doing the thing, but girl, you got to do the thing. Yeah, absolutely. But sorry, I think I'm off track with your actual question, which is very ADHD, everybody. Ask me again. What am I trying to follow up on here?
I loved that when we were talking about the podcast, I said, oh, you don't have to send me the questions. And you're like, no, I need to for my sake because that will help me. So just like even in that way, you would do the questions because that's going to help you do your job better.
Absolutely. And so structure and organization have become like paramount to me. I would say that the most important thing about my business is the skeleton that I run it with, which is like extreme organization. I have to have that in order to be able to then free up my creativity and like my joy and all the things that make me unique as a coach. But underpinning that, I am locked in with my calendar. I am locked in with my lists. I have spreadsheets for everything. Like I have to keep my brain hyper organized in order to be able to not drop the ball. And that's why my family could not believe that I had been diagnosed with the ADHD because I've been holding all of them together for the entire time. Like I've held my husband and my kids together the whole time. And it's because I am hyper organized. I had to be.
That's so interesting because just this morning I did a podcast interview and she said that she has ADHD, but she's super organized. And that's why you have to be.
Yeah.
Okay, but then how did you learn that? Did it come naturally? Did someone teach you? Like, how do you learn? Because I know some people with ADHD are going to be like, I don't know how to do that. Like, how do you get hyper organized? I guess different types have different challenges.
I think so. Look, I'm a very type A person. Here's a thing. So I used to believe that I was just incredibly good at execution. So on projects that like, give me a project, I will get it done to the very best that can be done. And I really believed that for a long time until I did a Clifton Strengths Finder test, probably around the time I was becoming a coach. And what I discovered is that execution is not remotely one of my top strengths, not anywhere near the top 10, because yeah, I do have ADHD. But the thing that I have always had is responsibility. Number 2 strength out of my 40 strengths was responsibility. If I tell you that I'm going to do something for you, that I'm going to be there for you, like that's a very emotional thing for me. And so I will move heaven and earth to make that thing happen for you. And so I think that's sort of where my organization came from, was this responsibility to others, whether it was to my teachers and not wanting to let them down, whether it was to my classmates who were working on a project, wanting to make sure that I didn't drop the ball for somebody else, whether it's for my clients, wanting to make sure that if they're going out on a limb and hiring me to be their coach, that they get the best possible coaching and that I am on time for every appointment and that I knock it out of the park for them. So it's responsibility, I think, that for me was the thing that made the difference.
Oh, that's such a good answer. And that makes me just think about all the different people, all the different strengths that each person has, all the different brain types. And really, there's no one answer for anyone. It is looking at all those things, bringing them together. So what resources or solutions or tips have helped you, or that you've also seen have helped your clients? And it could be business or home.
Yeah, I got a couple of tips. One is one we've already gone over a little bit, the thing that helps me the most, which is the dopamine first rule. And so basically that's just before you try to force yourself to do this task that you've been avoiding, definitely do something first that raises your dopamine. Take a walk, do a workout, listen to a song you love, engage in something creative, whatever it does it for you personally, uniquely you. And then return to do the hard thing. And so just never try to willpower your way through it, because that often doesn't work and just makes you feel even worse. And then your dopamine gets even lower because you're feeling bad about yourself. So that's one tip. Another thing that can be really useful for some of your clients could be something called body doubling. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before, but that's when you work alongside another person. Sometimes you can even do it virtually. It doesn't have to be someone physically, but you can actually have just a laptop up and your body doubling with somebody who's on the other end of the screen. And you guys are just keeping each other accountable. But just having someone near you while you work tends to really help people to lock in. I guess it raises the interest level a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard AI is starting to do that too. They can do that work.
I had heard that that was something that's coming along the pipeline too. And I think it's very interesting. I happen to be pro AI. I find as a person with ADHD, it's really helpful to me I can ask an agent, hey, this is something I'm planning to do. Here are all of my thoughts about it. Can you let me know if there are any like blind spots that I'm not seeing here, especially as someone with ADHD? And it can say, oh, have you considered these 3 things? And maybe I haven't. So I find it to be very useful to be able to have those types of conversations.
That would be a good conversation if you're hurt or overly sensitive to go and okay. And would another person react like that if you didn't have someone to talk to about it?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that AI, if used effectively and appropriately, can be an absolutely incredible tool for all people, but especially people with ADHD.
Yeah. Any in your home? Let's just go to your home. Is there anything you do in your home to help you? Does the responsibility part and the highly organized part translate into your home as well as your business?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. So my husband also manages his ADHD by keeping things like very tidy. He's actually tidier than I am. And his strategy is anything that's bothering him that he doesn't want to see in the house gets placed into my office space. So my office space is the most cluttered place in our entire domicile. And sometimes that can get a little overwhelming. And there's a lot of stuff that I have to sort through because it's nowhere else in the rest of the house. Some of the things that have been most useful for me, I've learned from listening to other podcasts about having an ADHD brain. So one of the tips that I got that I thought was really useful is that people with ADHD need to have things in baskets or with clear lids so that you can remember what's inside of it, because our brains are out of sight, out of mind. We literally do not remember that we have the thing. So I learned to organize by type. For example, like I have a basket just for my swimsuits. I know exactly where they are. I know exactly what's in it. And I can see a swimsuit right on top of it. So I'm like, oh, it's time to go to the beach. I don't have to search everywhere. Where's the swimsuit? There they are. They're right there in the basket. But for me, just understanding the way my brain functions, things have to be organized so I can see them and that they're in like a clear space that's just for that one thing and that they're not going to get forgotten. Because if not, I might have something that I really intend to remember, but it gets lost for 3 or 4 years. And then I run across it at some random time.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at throwing things away. My brain's always, oh, you might need that someday. I keep things. I don't think I go as far as to say that I'm a hoarder, but I would say that I probably keep things that other people would give away because they're like, oh, I haven't read that book in 5 years. I'm probably can give that away now. And I'm like, but what if I want to read it again someday?
Yes. Ooh, so many good questions there. Is there anything you're still struggling with? And maybe that's one of them, that it's harder for you to let go of things or that you just haven't chosen to.
Yeah.
Anything, well, with that or with the home or your business.
Absolutely. look, ADHD does not go away just because you get diagnosed with it. If anything, you're just more aware of what's going on. And menopause, which is a situation that I'm in, absolutely doesn't help with ADHD. In fact, so many women are diagnosed with ADHD as they're in perimenopause or going through menopause because estrogen actually modulates dopamine. And so a lot of women who have been like barely holding things together, but doing it for a long time, suddenly find out when they're going through this transition of life, they can no longer hold things together. So there are days when my hormones are just super low because the lab will tell you I have almost no estrogen left. So there are days when I just can't focus still behind the laptop. I have something important I need to turn out for a podcast I'm about to present or for a client that I need to follow up on, and my brain just won't do it. And so then it comes down to a lot of self-compassion, like we talked about before, a lot of just understanding. A lot of times I have low energy. I'm just exhausted because I don't feel like that internal motivation. I can still forget things. The queen of that very typical stereotype of menopause. I walk into a room, but I can't remember why I'm there. Has anybody seen my cell phone? Has anyone seen my keys like 1,000 times a day? Yeah, these things are normal. But this peace and self-compassion are things I'm working on. I actually had this bracelet made. It's very simple and inexpensive, but I had it made on Amazon, and you can write a message into it. And so the message that I wrote says acceptance equals peace. And I look at it like 100 times a day. And it reminds me that this is the situation, that yes, I have ADHD and I am trying to run 2 businesses and 2 podcasts and 2 Instagram accounts and a family. And it's a lot and deal with the crazy outside world. And I just need to take a breath and just accept. So, yeah.
That's so interesting. Acceptance came up for me too. I had something really hard. And after just trying to just be with it, there came a time and I just said, I just remembered. This was exactly what was supposed to happen. This was supposed to happen. And it really switched everything inside of me. So I love thinking of that acceptance. Any client stories you have that have really helped a client or had them either home or business too, again, that help them in their business or in their home or parenting even?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say that the biggest client story, the biggest headline that I have to announce is that there is a huge overlap between the clients that come to me as moms that are just looking for support because they're feeling overwhelmed or stuck, or they're really struggling with a relationship with one of their kids or someone else in their family, and getting a diagnosis of ADHD. It's way more than what you would expect in the average population, because in the average population, I think the numbers are 8 to 10% of children are diagnosed with ADHD. And they're not exactly sure, but they think researchers are suspecting that in adults, it's more like 6 to 8% of adults have ADHD, but they don't know exactly because so many of us, like me, are getting a late diagnosis. But I cannot tell you how many people that I've coached for years who have discovered maybe halfway through our coaching journey, sometimes through my suggestion to get tested, a lot of times not, just on their own, that they also have an undiagnosed neurodiversity. And that is a life-changing recognition for so many people. And so I have a very unscientific theory. I have no evidence, guys. Do not quote me on this as an expert, but based only on my own coaching business, my own practice for the last 7 years, I think people who tend to reach out for coaching, they may skew a little bit toward neurodiversity. They're like, yeah, I am not managing this the way that my neighbor seems to be or that my best friend seems to be. And I feel like I need a little extra support. And I don't feel like I need to go sit in therapy and unpack my childhood, but I feel like I'm having trouble hitting my goals. And I'd really like to get a little support to figure out how I can accomplish things. And that's when they turn toward coaches like me. So I've seen that happen with a number of clients, people that I had worked with for years. I can think of one right off the top of my head who I'd probably worked with for off and on for 3 years. And she'd come back to me for different issues as they popped up in her life. And as I was going through my education process, her face was really flashing in my head quite a lot. And so I said to her, gosh, have you ever considered that you could potentially have ADHD? How does that land with you? And she was like, gosh, it's so funny you say that. But my therapist recently said the same thing. What do you think about that? So she did end up going through a process, and I can't tell you how much it's changed our coaching sessions because the level of shame that she felt, the level of guilt that she felt about simple cleaning things, like keeping the kitchen organized, keeping the pantry organized, like why can't I go ahead and get the boxes put away after I move the same way as everybody else? It really dissipated after she understood herself better. And she's still working on those things. It's not like it made an overnight miraculous change, but what it's changed is our conversations in coaching. We are no longer coaching about shame. We are coaching about strategies for organization that work for people with ADHD. And that is a huge shift and a huge win. I think she's a lot happier. So good.
I love that. So what about for you, mindset? So before, what you said, I am a procrastinator, almost like that was your identity. Does anything shift about your mindset or your identity and how you think about yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if anyone has followed me on Instagram, my account there has been Think to Thrive Coaching. And for 6 years, I'd been the queen of the mindset shift. That was literally what I was known for, was like taking a thought and being able to question that thought and then pick a thought that feels better. But I would say that the way I defined myself was the way that other people had defined me. Oh, Andrea's really smart, but she's really sensitive. And oh yeah, like she pulls off great things, but wow, she waits to the last minute. She's a huge procrastinator. And oh, she can be really intense, but you'll also love her because she's really fun. These kinds of ways that other people saw me were the way I saw myself. I just assumed that's who I am. I'm this very complicated, but interesting, very loving, but sometimes very sad person. Like I viewed other people's labels of me as being the truth. And this was an amazing opportunity for me, adding on to all the years of coaching that I have received, because a good coach has a coach. I just want you to know.
Yeah.
It was a really neat opportunity for me to change that, have a mind shift for myself, change that definition of myself. And now I see, oh, okay, what I am is like the best way of saying it. I am an open-minded, like sincere and genuine human with ADHD who spent a long time not understanding myself and letting other people define me. And now that I'm 50 years old and I understand better than I ever had in my whole life who I am, from this point forward, I define myself. And that has been super empowering.
I love it. Are there words that stand out that you define yourself as?
Oh my gosh. It probably depends on the day. Yeah, like I would say, I don't know, on my WhatsApp message that sends out to everybody, you have your name and your image and then your message. Mine has always been the answer is love. And I would say that love is probably the word that defines me most because it's my highest value. The love I have for my children, for my husband, for my mother, my family, my friends, my clients. I used to say as a teacher that I had never met a child that I couldn't find something to love about, which is what made me a great teacher because I literally loved every single one of my students. And my biggest worry about becoming a coach for moms in the beginning was, can I love adults that I don't know as much as I've loved children that I don't know? And luckily, it turns out that moms are so lovable.
Yeah.
And if I can just put out a little plug for moms as we're wrapping up, like mothers work so hard. They give so much, so selflessly, and very often they are the last people that are taken into account. It's almost a woman's worth, although we get lovely cards on Mother's Day and so forth. It's almost as though once we've lost our procreative value, when we're no longer pumping out babies, suddenly like society shifts and they're busy looking at younger women, younger moms, or even women that haven't become moms yet. That's where the value seems to be placed, at least in American society, on being young, super fit, super beautiful, super powerful, and then being able to like find your partner and have a bunch of kids. But then it stops there. The reason I became passionate about coaching moms and empty nesters and women diagnosed late in life is because we are people of tremendous value to society with so much hard-won wisdom. And I just don't think that like we get enough voice. I think that there are so many incredible women out there whose voices need to be shared and celebrated because they have learned things that are worth hearing. And I think you're one of those people, Tracy, which is why I'm super excited to feature you soon on my podcast, because I just think that you are doing very important work in the world. And there's tremendous value to that. So cheers for women.
Yes. I'm like, preach it. Go, go. What a valuable coach you are. Oh my goodness. Okay, I have something that came up. I just have to ask. So the overstimulation or over processing at night, and
Yes,
you can't shut your brain off. What do you do for that? What is your tip or solution?
that is such an important question. Okay, first of all, understanding what's happening is like very important so that you can actually name it. And that is stepping outside of yourself so that you can get it away from what you're actually doing and naming it. I could just talk for myself. Andrea is laying in the dark right now at 2 a.m, and her thoughts are spinning rapidly in her brain. Andrea is wishing that she could sleep, almost naming it like a third person so that it doesn't become like, oh no, the world is ending and everything is terrible tonight. And, what's going to happen with my son? Pull back so that you can name what's happening. And it's also very useful to write it down, like keep a journal next to your bed. And if you have a lot of swirling thoughts in your head, just turn on the light and write down every single thing that is keeping you up and worrying you, because you can tell your brain, okay, it's cool. I got you. I have recorded your worries. I validate them and acknowledge them. You can let them go now and go to bed because you're not going to lose them. That's something that happens in an ADHD brain, is that we keep cycling over thoughts because we are so worried we are going to forget them if we don't keep thinking about them. So it's very helpful if you have ADHD to write it down. I have a notepad on my phone where every time I think of something that needs to go on a to-do list or just any thought that's very important, I capture it. And I do that day and night, because as soon as it's captured, my brain can let it go and knows that I'm not going to lose it. And I can then go forward with whatever, whether it's sleeping or whether it's taking action. There's also some supplements that have been really helpful to me personally for sleeping. Like glycine is an amino acid that I highly recommend. Very good for your neurotransmitters, very good for sleep. Trying to think what else. And by the way, I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist, so please do not, anyone listening, this is just what Andrea does. It's not what you should do. I take something called L-theanine, and sometimes that's combined together with glycine or with GABA. Magnesium is a supplement. It's really good for sleep. So those are things that I personally use. Obviously, I'm not credentialed enough to be able to recommend them to your listeners, but they're things that have worked for me very well.
I love it. I love how you spoke to yourself. Like you spoke to your brain. That's so powerful and just so kind. It sounded so kind. Oh my gosh, this has been really good. I appreciate you so much, Andrea, for being here and sharing your own personal situation and experience. And then also from a coach's perspective, it's been really interesting. And I'm sure it'll help many people. So tell people where they can find you.
Oh, thank you. I just want to thank you so much for the invitation to join you here. I love your podcast and I feel really lucky to be part of it. And if people want to find me, I'm pretty easy to find. I get your papers out, people, so you can write it down if you have ADHD. I wouldn't be able to remember it. I have 2 Instagram accounts and 2 businesses, but they both have one name each. Think to Thrive Coaching, at Think to Thrive Coaching on Instagram. You can Google me, Think to Thrive Coaching, to find my coaching website for women, empty nesters, moms in midlife. But the new business that I'm super passionate about and would be really pumped if people wanted to come check out is called Scattered and Spectacular. And the Instagram account is very new. Like I told you, one of the accounts has a crazy number of followers. My new one has 216 followers, and I'm super proud of them. So think, you could be the 217th person. And it's at Scattered and Spectacular on Instagram, or you can find my podcasts. I have 2 of them. And that's a great way to get to know my work without having to commit to anything. My main podcast that I've had for many years now is called the Infinite Capacity Podcast. You can find that on Apple Podcasts or just really any of your favorite podcasting platforms. And my brand new ADHD podcast is called Scattered and Spectacular. So basically, you couldn't have a simple answer, right? I am a woman with ADHD, so I have to give you a lot of names and a lot of things.
We'll have all those links. And that made me think of the question I wrote down in the very beginning. 60,000 followers on your one account. How does that happen? Did you tell us, business owners.
I think that it happened because I wasn't afraid to just show up really authentically with the struggles that I was having as a mom, and then also as a coach, giving strategies that people could try to, if they were grappling with similar struggles. At the time I started my account, I had 3 teenagers in my house and with very large personalities and neurodiversity all blended together. And it was a struggle. That's something that I'm really passionate about, which is what happens when you are a neurodiverse mother who is raising neurodiverse children, because you are
And
still
married.
expected to be a good mom and married to a neurodiverse partner.
Yeah, yeah.
You are still expected to be a good mom. You can't be like, oh, sorry, guys, I dropped the ball on that because, hey, did I tell you I have ADHD? The kids don't care.
Yeah.
You got to show up on time, pick them up from school. You got to show up for the meetings that matter for them. You got to still be a solid mom. Anyway, I showed up on my Instagram account being really honest about the struggles that I faced and the hard things that I was going through. And on the reels that I created, they weren't perfect. I don't show up perfect. There were days I showed up in my pajamas, days that I showed up crying, like days that I showed up stressed out, times that I recorded a reel right after dinner where the family was all shouting at each other. And I'm just sitting there shell-shocked at the table after the end of dinner, just flipped on the camera and recorded what I really looked like in that real moment. And I think that a lot of moms out there were like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one.
Yes.
But I recognize my life in you. And also I just created a really safe space. I have curated the people that have been able to engage on the space in a very loving manner. So if someone comes into that space and they're not kind or loving to other people, I'm on top of that action. I kick them out real fast because it is a space where moms need to be able to come and feel welcome, feel seen, feel loved, and feel understood. And I don't want anyone ever to feel uncomfortable.
Authenticity. That's what I heard you say. Honest authenticity and real, just showing up real. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Andrea, thanks again. And everyone, you guys have an amazing week until next week.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wait, if you're finding this podcast useful, you must check out the Organized Coach Academy. It's my course where I walk you through every step to get your business organized, to get yourself organized, to save money and time, to prepare to hire someone, to do all the things that you want to do in your business with ease. Check that out at simplysquaredaway.com/OCA. Also, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but I would love it. It's my way of knowing that you're enjoying the podcast if you leave a written review. I have lots of freebies for you. They're linked in the show notes. You can find them in my bio on Instagram at Tracy Hoth. And until next week, have a beautiful day.